Parliament Channel 11, also broadcasting on 105.5 FM.
The Honorable, the Speaker.
Most people want Arabian Saudi in field, right? After member for Naparima is member for Tunapuna. After member for Pajapal is Minister of Community Development. After Minister of Social Development, Minister of Labour and Micro Enterprise and Development today. They want Arabian. Don't worry. No, no, no.
Minister of Housing.
Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time for the Minister of Housing be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The member for Chaguanas East. I was not referring to what you had said earlier, but I was quoting what the entire opposition has said so far. But I thank you anyway for your gracious contribution. Madam Speaker, before I was interrupted, I stated that it was just not the lower class, but the middle and middle upper classes as well. So I disagree with my esteemed colleagues that it is not the socio-economic background that leads to radicalization, because this government has already put in numerous countermeasures to ensure that these youths have, at least within this ministry, and under what I can control, an atmosphere where they can be productive and protected. Madam Speaker, in recognizing that the bill before the Parliament has merit and is worthy of consideration, the government is of the view that radicalization is more effectively dealt with on a continuous basis through the programs that touch the hearts and minds of those most affected. Madam Speaker, it is therefore our intention to continue these programs in the face of the progress that has been made in improving the standards of living of all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Member for Naparima.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 4410, I ask permission to refer to my notes.
Member, leave has been denied, but you can make your contribution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the leader of the opposition mentioned, we need to come up with a concrete policy. In my contribution today, I will focus on the role of education as an institution can play. Now, the Honorable Minister of Education might not see the importance of education in this context because the minister is educated after all. But let us bear in mind that education helps enforce the status quo and is a secondary agent of socialization. And as Karl Marx espoused, a means of social control. And Madam Speaker, here's an issue that needs social control. The Ministry of Education has a duty of care to prevent extremism. The question remains, are they doing enough, or are the policies that are in place just there to look good on paper? Schools' duty to prevent extremism has now been enshrined in law in Section 26 of the 2015 Counter Terrorism and Security Act. And what are we doing about this, Madam Speaker? Matthew Francis, a lecturer from Lancaster University, writing about said legislation, states as follows: schools are subjected to the duty to have due regards to the needs to prevent people from being drawn into terrorism. Being drawn into terrorism not only includes violent extremism, but also non-violent extremism, which can create an atmosphere conducive to terrorism and can popularize views which terrorists exploit. Within the Ministry of Education, there is a need for leadership, partnership, and capabilities. And this can only come through the establishment of this policy. 1, leadership. Do teachers, middle management, and principals has a clear definition of radicalization? How do they spot radicalization? I believe the answer is unclear, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, because this issue does not directly affect us, and by that I mean radicalization and all its ugly tentacles, armed conflict, refugee crisis, and terrorist attacks, it has not hit home. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is if you don't understand the bigger picture, how are you going to understand radicalization? How are teachers going to prevent vocal and active opposition to values such as democracy, the rule of law, individual liberty, and mutual respect for people of different faiths and beliefs? Leadership then, and I reiterate, leadership then is where teachers and principals need to start thinking out of the box. You cannot be like an ostrich with his head buried in the sand and think, we don't need to educate our youths about this. This doesn't affect us. Show leadership by proper inclusion of this topic in history, social studies, and Caribbean studies syllabi. It can also be integrated into the English language syllabus and the Age of LE syllabus, not least to give students the necessary skills to identify and challenge harmful ideas themselves. Hence, the need for Counter Radicalism Youth Policy. 2, partnership. Has the Ministry of Education and by extension schools fostered partnerships with community groups to deal with this issue of radicalism? If we approach this the wrong way, Madam Speaker, we may be guilty of targeting and branding the Muslim community. We need outreach programs in schools to build cohesion. I have had the opportunity to speak with an imam, Mr. Kazim Hussein, who is also a teacher, and what I got from him is that there's a need to strengthen community cohesion in all groups.
Your time has expired.
Madam Speaker, I seek agreement of the House to continue to speak for further 3 minutes to continue my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time for the member for Naparima be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And what I got from him is that there is a need to strengthen community cohesion in all groups, not just the Muslim community. So for example, if Syrians are displaced, our students working with community groups can come up with plans to provide humanitarian assistance. This will allow students to become active participants and will build unity rather than factions. This is democracy in its truest sense, being able to work with diverse groups, listening to different ideas and opinions, and still being able to come up with a solution. The Counter Radicalism Youth Policy is therefore needed to cement this recommendation. The religious education in schools can also be used not as a tool for further division, but to educate our youths about other religion. They are good in all faiths, Madam Speaker, and utilizing the religious instruction in such a way will help build appreciation of others and prevent radicalism, not just in Islam, but Hinduism, Christianity, and all other faiths. For as Archbishop Desmond Tutu once said, we are a rainbow nation. Let us not lose sight of that and get caught up in hate. 3, capabilities. Clearly, our teachers are not equipped to teach this topic to teach the negative effects of radicalization at present. The Ministry of Education then has the duty of care to make teachers capable. The Ministry of Education will need to provide workshop and training to understand and prevent risk associated with radicalism and extremism. And to the Minister of Finance, we don't need money. If we collaborate and network with NGOs and faith-based organizations, I am sure they will volunteer their services. But first, we need to show them that the opposition and government can unite on this policy. You see, Madam Speaker, failure to deal with this issue can have far-reaching negative consequences. This is not about providing training programs like MOS and HYPE and make-work programs like CPEP. Handout gimmicks to shut the fickle masses up cannot prevent this problem. This is not only a socio-economic problem, and we are not making it one. Socioeconomics may be a factor, but it is not the root cause. It has more to do with the lack of right values, attitudes, and life skills. So I call on the Mo.
Your time has expired.
Thank you, Madam.
Minister of Communication.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So to understand this motion brought forward by the opposition, we first need to understand what is radicalism. Scholars have noted that this lack of clarity is rooted in the notion that radicalism is inherently subjective, a relational concept between a particular group and its comparator. Sophia Mascalino and Clark Macaulay disabuse readers of the notion that the trajectory of terrorism is a dimension that begins in grievance and ends in violence. Madam Speaker, we, the members of the government bench, have put countless programs in place to stop the youths from being aggrieved. We have the YTEP program, CPEP program, MUST, and the other list of programs that have been stated today. These have been put in place not, as the member for Naparima said, as gimmicks to shut the masses up. No, these are to build skills because, as the saying goes, the devil finds work for idle hands. And we have made sure that our youths of Trinidad have something to keep themselves occupied with. These programs allow skills of employment to be developed, allow the citizens to feel a sense of belonging with the groups. Because the causes of radicalism and terrorism are poverty, limited employment opportunities, and feelings of alienation from society. But we did not wait for this motion to be put in place. We saw these problems long before and implemented these programs so that we can curb this problem in an early stage, just as the leader of the opposition said, nip this in the bud. We cut this in the bud by creating these programs, which could be used to help make the youth feel better in society. Madam Speaker, as the member for Couva North rightfully said, a policy of this nature costs a lot of money to be put in place. And instead, that money can be used to develop the programs that we have currently. And one of the members said that we don't need money, but then your other member just said that we needed money to put these in place. And the contradicting view had me confused. By spending this money on a policy, right, how can we fortify our communication systems to avoid terrorist attack? Because as you are all aware, cyber terrorism is a major thing in our society today. So cyber terrorism, according to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is any premeditated, politically motivated attack against information, computer systems, computer programs, and data, which results in violence against non-combatant targets in subnational groups or clandestine agents. Will a policy stop our networks from being cyber attacked? Really? Will that help? And contrary to the opposition's debate, the whole notion that poverty is the poor classes are the only people that are affected by radicalism. Cyber terrorism is carried out by the elite classes and the middle classes of society because this technology is expensive and it is very hard to come across. But throughout all of this, the government, we can only put so many programs in place. But can we really deal with the heart of an individual? We can put everything possible, but it is up to the person to come to the forefront and decide that they want to make themselves better, and that they don't want to become radicalized, and that they choose to make themselves something in society and not bring down the name of our country by joining other terrorist groups abroad. And also, to the member Naparima, you wanted to know what the government is doing in schools. We have implemented counseling programs to deal with youths who feel alienated in society. I'm sure you can go to these services and talk to them if you feel afraid or if you feel that you're not being heard. And that is how we deal with radicalism in the school. We help them feel a sense of belonging and a sense of want in our society. So therefore, I stand with the government today that a Counter Radicalism Youth Policy is not necessary. We just need to take time and regroup ourselves and develop the programs that we have already implemented and work on the policies that we have put in place. And I thank you.
Member for St. Augustine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pleasant good afternoon to everyone in the chamber today. Firstly, of all, I would like to thank the present and past Prime Minister for their valuable contribution made towards the development of the youth of Trinidad and Tobago. To refresh the government, I would like to start by saying you all did a good job, but not good enough. Madam Speaker, today I will be speaking on the definition of radicalism, the root causes of radicalism, and the solution to radicalism. Firstly, Madam Speaker, according to the sociologist Karl Marx, he described that radicalism as a political attitude with purpose to change the present social order. He also believed that radicalism can be caused by economics, social and political effects, and also the legislation of society. Respectfully, I do believe that social effects can be a major causes of radicalism in our country. Madam Speaker, focusing on this topic, it can be linked to juvenile delinquency. Madam Speaker, juvenile delinquency may be defined as a criminal behavior committed, by minors. This was stated by Mustafa in 2009. According to the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian newspaper on the 21st of the 2nd of 2017, an East Indian man in his late 20s, a former St. Mary's College student who had graduated from the University of the West Indies with a law degree, and I quote, a law degree, was amongst those who went to Syria in the mid-2014. He is believed to have been killed a few weeks ago, which stated by the sources. The fact that or you call upon, or you're saying that or you have institution which which like CCC and MUS and NESC, stating that or you're helping everybody. And this person here went to Syria. He have a law degree. I state that, a law degree, and he is becoming radicalized, and he end up dead. Dead! Sorry. Okay. Madam Speaker, according to a report of the National Task Force for the Criminal Prevention in Barbados, 56.3% of the youth offenses interviewed at the main prison had committed offenses more than once within a 2-year span. 56.3% of our youths. And I call ourselves the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Of the youth interviewed, 37.5% had juvenile conviction for which they could not be legally imprisoned before the age of 16. Our youths between the, our youths between the years of 3 to 15 have been becoming radicalized. Wow. And you all say you have policies for this? This is not enough. Madam Speaker.
Members, you are reminded. Members, you are reminded that your colleagues must give their contributions in silence. Please desist from the excessive commentaries. Member for St. Augustine, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In our country, there have been reports on youth radicalism in our local newspapers, such as The Guardian, the newspaper, and The Express, stated that between the years of 2013 to 2015, ages from 3 to 25 have joined forces with the enigmatic state of Iraq and Syria, as known as ISIS.
4410, the member is reading from her paper.
Overruled. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In closing, I would like to suggest the solution to this. We should have at least sporting activities, NGOs program. Sorry.
Your time has expired.
Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to speak for 3 minutes in order to finish my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time for the member for St. Augustine be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. No. I think the noes have it. The Attorney General Thank you, Madam Speaker. For the representative for St. Augustine, we appreciate your contribution, but clearly I don't think the government is too sure on what your point is. So bringing it back to the motion, our country is not a notebook where when something isn't working, we can simply remove a page and start from scratch. It is not that simple. The opposition wants quick and rash decisions where it is not possible. We need to look at the policies we already have, identify weaknesses, and correct them. The motion mentions root causes to be poverty, limited employment, and feelings of alienation in society. There are various programs in place that, even though are not directly targeted at reducing the attraction of youth to radicalism, they seek to prevent the social ills that tend to lead to them. One example are the vocational schools made available to our citizens. These schools offer technical skills required to perform tasks for specific jobs. One such school is the Automation Technology Center, which offers programs in security, leadership and management, and health and security. Automation Technology Center also offers scholarship for tuition, where applicants only have to be Trinidadians with at least 3 O-level passes, not even a full certificate of 5. ATC also seeks to be an inclusive college that provides skills for persons that are less academically inclined. There is also the HYPE program, helping you prepare for employment, which helps citizens obtain sustainable development. There are 9-month programs in carpentry, masonry, plumbing, welding, and fabrication. Persons involved in this program are given a daily stipend of $50, meals, bus passes for transportation, and their very own personal protection equipment. Now I say, with more skilled persons, there are more persons eligible for employment, and consequently, they will be reducing poverty. So, do we really need another policy to pump money into, still to no avail? Or should we step back, dissect the existing policies, and look at measures to improve them? I think the latter is more economical, logical, and beneficial to the youth of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you, Madam Speaker. Deputy Speaker, Member for Tunapuna.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Youth radicalism and terrorism is a complex and alarming issue to Trinidad and Tobago, which is interrelated to psychology, social marginalization, and the interpretation of religious rules. Consequently, we, the government, view this debate as a means to further strengthen a national response to the pernicious influences of youth radicalism and terrorism, which threatens our shared values of discipline, tolerance, and production. Madam Speaker, in order for us to find the best solution that will dissuade our youth, we must first understand the core factors which influence them. One major causative factor can be observed at the micro level, which involves individuals experiencing feelings of anger, alienation, social dissociation, and the dire need to belong to a family or group. These specific feelings and psychological traits are conducive to radicalization, according to the book Walking Away from Terrorism by John Hauger, 2009. This can originate as a result of the family, the primary institution of our society, weakening in its purpose to effectively socialize our children. In Trinidad and Tobago, single-parent households are dominant, and this is supported by 2011 census statistics that reveals at least 1/6 of the households in Trinidad and Tobago are female-headed. A study conducted by sociologist Melville Herskovitz found that there is looseness in the peripheral status of the father, looseness in the importance of family support, and also marital and common law relationships are easily dissolved. This correlates to sociologist Travis Hershey's argument that persons who fail to develop strong bonds with conventional people, such as the family, are susceptible to deviant behavior because there is no one to answer to in their lives. These theories and factors prove true and can have detrimental effects in our youth and resulting in our young people becoming vulnerable. Vulnerable as a result of being a member of a dysfunctional family. Vulnerable because of internal feelings of anger and alienation. Vulnerable because they just want a sense of belonging. According to political scientist John McCoy, terrorist recruiters are targeting these same vulnerable young men between the ages of 16 to 25 to join radical and terrorist groups. However, Madam Speaker, I can assure you that this government, through its various ministries, have provided many programs and policies to mitigate our youth's chances of becoming radicalized. Our ministries have provided youth offices, sports and youth facilities and programs, vacation camps, homework centers, counseling and guidance services, and even family and parenting outreach programs, just to name a few. Madam Speaker, to further mitigate the vulnerability of our youth, a new policy is not, I repeat, a new policy is not the answer, but rather revamping and effectively implementing the existent youth and parenting programs, specifically in the areas of Rio Claro, Chaguanas, and Piaco in my constituency, which local news reports have identified as recruitment hubs. Madam Speaker, I truly commend the opposition members for their lovely input. I am hearing the opposition's cry for this policy over and over, but I am not hearing anything new from what already exists. It makes me ask myself, did the opposition know that the government continuously reviews the 2005 Anti-Terrorism Act? Did they know that Trinidad is an active participant in regional security initiatives such as the Caribbean Community Implementing Agency for Crime and Security? Did they know in June 2016, the leaders from the Islamic community of Trinidad and Tobago signed a joint agreement condemning violent extremism? Did they know that we already have an existent youth policy? Madam Speaker, I will conclude reaffirming everyone that we, the government, will continue to strengthen our national responses to the pernicious influences of youth radicalism and terrorism via our hardworking ministries. Allow me to quote from my honorable MP, Mr. Rushton Parry. Change is not going to happen from top to bottom, but rather in our homes and communities. I thank you.
Member for Chaguanas West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, we can agree that the poor, uneducated, and underprivileged can be considered to be most at risk. These are not the only people who feel isolated from society. These are not the only people who feel marginalized. Madam Speaker, the government talks about existing policies, but these mainly exist to help those in need. What are the policies that directly seek to not only assist those in need, but to discourage these educated, privileged people from leaving TNT to join these terrorist groups? They speak of guidance counselors, but how effective have this been so far? What of those who decide not to take advantage of these counselors in school? This counter radicalism policy needs to be established because all youth should be guided into making rational, sane decisions that lead to the well-being of our nation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, thank you. First, I would like to address Couva North. Couva North said that the policy may not save our country, so why have the policy? Also to Naparima. Naparima and Barretara San Juan, like both of you all were asleep because you asked if government was awake, and surely you were not paying attention to my colleague's contribution. Madam Speaker, firstly, I would like to discuss two root causes of terrorism. Self-centric, which is selfish, concern solely of oneself. Egoism, an ethical theory that treats self as foundation of morality. Madam Speaker, Education develops humility and it destroys egoism and the self-centric approach. The Ministry of Education is going to ensure that we take up the responsibility to educate young people to accept, respect people of different faiths and culture, as low as preschool to the tertiary level. This can be achieved by the following: a compulsory introduction of a syllabus geared towards such at all levels, the use of social media to bring awareness via government programs and encourage citizens to be tolerant of people of different faiths and cultures. As seen in the Middle East, Central Asia, Far East, and parts of Africa, educating persons in ways that promote tolerance and respect for diversity will go a long way in combating terrorism. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education is going to partner with NGOs, example CSP, to fund campaigns which can include competitions to encourage students to participate at all levels. Madam Speaker, education has the full power to unlock human potential and raise global standards of living. Madam Speaker, Francis Forbes, Executive Director of CARICOM Crime and Security Agency, stated that ISIS uses social media and online propaganda to recruit terrorists. Madam Speaker, we are not only going to educate the young people, but we are also going to educate parents on how to monitor their kids on social media and how they can be lured into these different things here. Madam Speaker, CARICOM states have also noted that ISIS attracts younger recruits more likely to have dropped out of school and also have violent past. Madam Speaker, we are going to use our guidance counselors, our guidance officers, to speak to children who might want to drop out of school to find out what are the reasons behind this. Also, students who drop out of school may drop out of school because of peer pressure, failing too many classes, probably getting pregnant, or may want to enter into gangs. Madam Speaker, in schools, this government, we are going to cater for those who are not only academically inclined, but those who are gifted and talented with their hands. We need to bring back the things like woodworks, welding, hairdressing, cooking, all of these things, so that these students who may go into gangs or who may not be academically inclined may be able to see a way through the education system. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education is working on improving programs such as YTEP, MUS, MIC, CCC, MILAT. We are the voice of the people, and we will continue to work hard to make Trinidad and Tobago great again. In conclusion, let us make it clear, the government together with the Ministry of Education is dedicated to combating terrorism as effectively edifying our youth is our main priority. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister of Community Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today we have heard many definitions of the word radicalization, but I would like to add my own definition as it relates to my ministry. Radicalization, according to Vischer 2015, is the process where youth are lured to hold extreme principles, demonize certain communities, and embrace violence. Radicalization is a commitment. It's an advocacy for change to the way things function, to the way things work, and it challenges the legitimacy of the state. Youth, according to United Nations, are persons between the ages of 15 to 25, or approximately 16%, 200,000 of our 1.3 million citizens within our twin islands. It is often the view that radicalization is a psychological problem, but it is not. There are many radicals who fit into society's model of normal. They go to school with us, they go to work, and we interact with them on a daily basis. Radicalization is a sociological phenomenon. It targets things such as belonging, group dynamic, and identity. Madam Speaker, I often ask myself the question, why would a young, vibrant boy or girl become a radical? One who is willing to harm themselves and others. It is through the development of new communication technologies, which glorify acts of violence as being socially acceptable in other societies. Furthermore, the labeling and streaming within our education system, which causes youth to become alienated from their peers due to the school's perception of them. What is their next alternative when the safe haven of a school fails to administer the holistic development it aims to achieve? There is no denying that the Trinidadian youth are becoming more and more intrigued by the cultures of others. They have the World Wide Web at their fingertips. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, I understand the youth and their curiosity, as well as the mere fact that radicalization can be seen as a fad. But there is no need to establish a new policy, as this ministry is well equipped with programs to facilitate the needs of those that feel alienated from our society. In order to treat with the problem of radicalism, this ministry has embarked on the establishment of programs that aid in the inclusion of everyone, an inclusion that does not discriminate against any background, faith, color, or community. Through the community education program, which consists of 40 different types of education sources, and I repeat for the opposition, more than 40 educational programs, such as food prep, home decor, bamboo craft, soap sculpting. These not only provide a skill, but it aids in community development, thus creating stronger bonds, decreasing relative depression, and provides a much-needed avenue for our youth. Trinidad and Tobago may be seen as a small twin island republic on our maps, but due to technological advancements, the world is becoming more and more connected, and our citizens cannot be taken for granted. And these programs facilitate employment, aids in rebuilding self-esteem into our ostracized youth, and provides them with the necessary skills to live a life that is befitting of a Trinbagonian, one who is not afraid of his or her cultural identity and proudly represents their commitments in a positive light. The member of Caroni Central stated that the opposition, and I quote, "We want a greater good." And to give an insight on the greater good from this government are as follows. Our people continue to embody the theme, every creed and race will find an equal place. The government's investment in cultural activities such as Best Village and Ramlila celebrations have not produced radicalized youth. The government's investment in carnival events such as Junior Calypso and Soca Monarch have not resulted in radicalized youth. The government's investment in this said youth parliament has not resulted in radicalized youth, but has created opportunities for mentorship and youth participation in governance. I am confident that I am not speaking to a chamber of radicalized youth. We are all beneficiaries of programs and policies of this ministry in some form and fashion, and we cannot deny this. In closing, I would like to reiterate that the government recognizes that our youths are at risk, and thus have not swept issues under the carpet, but have held the bull by its horns and implemented tactics which are aimed at eradicating youth radicalism. It is with great confidence that I say that there is no need to exhaust taxpayers' dollars in establishing a new policy, as there are already, and I state already, programs in place to curb with this phenomenon. Thank you.
Member for Faizabad.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I'd like to commend the government on providing information on the measures that have been taken place to deal with radicalism. It is enlightening. But I still ask the question, with so much policies, so much procedures in place, so much measures taken, why do we have reports as recent as the 26th of February stating that 200 plus citizens from Trinidad and Tobago joining ISIS? This proves that they're inefficient. These procedures are not working. as they are supposed to do. They are ineffective. This is why we need to push this policy forward. And members stated that, yes, we have scholarships available, and we have the employment initiative. Why are there over 100 medical students who passed 5 years examinations still unemployed? These qualified students or youth would then find employment somewhere else. And where you have these terrorist groups willing to offer money, status in society, they would easily move forward. And with my contribution, I would like to contribute with relations to the family. According to the 2014 census, and media reports, the majority of radicalized youth originate from matrifocal and single-parent families. They would face lack of guidance and face financial problems. Who would they turn to? They would turn to religion. Then you would have people acting as religious leaders, giving them the opportunity to use religion as an excuse for crime. This will further lead to radicalism. This is where the Ministry of Education should be focusing on. Focus on the youth. Prevent them from being brainwashed. Make them aware of the norms of society and how it is important to have a civilized community. Make them aware of the disadvantages of joining terrorist groups or becoming radicalized. This policy, yes, you have procedures in place. Why not have a policy to put behind it? This policy would also ensure that all the procedures and measures you have put in forward, this would ensure that they are taken seriously, that they will bring change. My fellow members, please, I quote, don't miss the water until the wells run dry. Don't wait till our beloved Trinidad and Tobago make international news. Oil and gas reservoir bombed, oil rig destroyed, and subheading, government fails to push radicalism, youth radical policy. My fellow member quoted prevention is better than cure. This is why we need to, I stress again and I repeat, we need to put this policy forward. Think of our youth. Our youth are our future. Our future should be at first. Thank you.
Minister for Social Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I must commend the opposition for their thought-provoking contributions. However, to the member of Caroni Central, the member of Caroni East, as well as the member of Faizabad, a policy is not a simple push or boost or support, and also to the member of Shogunas East. It is not a simple means of security. I dare say a policy is taking choice out of the picture altogether. One of my fellow colleagues quoted Newton's law earlier, but I think it's fitting to quote it again. According to Newton's third law, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Can we imagine the reaction that we are going to get from our nation's youth who feel targeted by this policy? And I think this should not become a case of Murphy's Law, where what is to go wrong will go wrong in the worst possible way. Madam Speaker, according to the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe, in their 2014 document entitled Preventing Terrorism and Countering Violent Extremism and Radicalism that Lead to Terrorism, the condition most conducive to radicalism and terrorism is socio-economic marginalization. Socio-economic meaning your place in society because of your economic status, and we are well aware that the elite in our society are not the ones being marginalized. But as my fellow members have stated, they do become radicalized by a conviction. However, since the opposition only wants to talk about, it seems as though you all only want to talk about poverty and our lack of provisions, let's talk about poverty and provisions. Socioeconomic marginalization can be caused by unemployment, poverty, and dysfunctional family units. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services is the core social sector ministry which is responsible for the implementation and coordination of the government's human and social development objectives. It currently offers programs, services, and grants to the persons in society, including the poor, elderly, socially displaced, and other vulnerable members of society, inclusive of the family unit. Madam Speaker, family is the cornerstone of society. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services is committed to strengthening the family unit and, by extension, this society. Madam Speaker, our programs and policies, such as the Family Support National Parenting Program, bear testimony to this fact, as it provides a range of social work interventions to push and promote healthy family functioning. Madam Speaker, we understand that radicalism is a problem in our society and that there is a need. According to the May 2017 CNN Al Jazeera report by Juliana Ruffus, which stated at least 130 Trinidadians have left to Syria and Iraq from a two-island nation of 1.3 million inhabitants, which means that in terms of per capita figures, recruitment is the highest in the Western Hemisphere. Madam Speaker, although this is an alarming statement, we must bear our population in mind. And we must understand that smaller numbers will always yield larger percentages as compared to other nations. The fact remains that the root causes which make radicalism and terrorism attractive to our citizens must be addressed. And the
I regret to inform you that your time has expired.
Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to speak for a further 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time for the Minister of Social Development be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and the members of this House. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, and by extension, this government, has measures in place to combat this radicalism problem, in the form of workshops and programs to help alleviate these root causes, such as poverty, unemployment, and adult illiteracy. Madam Speaker, we need to push and promote. We need to push and promote programs such as the Adult Education Program, the right of individuals to social and economic security and universal prosperity, or more commonly known as the Rise Up Program, the care and rehabilitation of street dwellers and socially displaced persons in Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker, these programs are all tailored to meet the needs of the marginalized in our society, to help them become empowered, and to help them gain a place in society, and to make radicalism and extremism a lot more unattractive to our citizens. Madam Speaker, we do not need an anti-radicalism policy which only bullies our citizens into cooperation. Instead, we need to push and promote our already existing programs which would help mold and guide our marginalized citizens into raising their socio-economic status and, by extension, the standard and status of our beloved Trinidad and Tobago. What do we need to do as a nation? We need to push and promote. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister of Labor and Small and Micro Enterprises.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have to say, I don't quite agree with the opposition on this one. It is clear that the youth are leaving our nation and joining terrorist groups. However, Madam Speaker, the government has gone out of its way countless times to provide all the necessities required to help our nation's youth prosper and feel welcome in the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is a fact that the government is playing its role in the development of today's youth. NEDCO, a service provided by the Ministry of Labor and Small and Micro Enterprise Development, was introduced to raise entrepreneurship as a revenue of wealth creation, poverty alleviation, and employment creation. One of NEDCO's programs, the Youth Entrepreneurial Success Programs, which benefits persons 18 to 30 years in training which change the lifestyle and business component development, encourages the youth to join and create their own businesses. Pursuing this further, Madam Speaker, these programs will diversify the minds of the youth to become creative and innovative, and also can be used as a stepping stone to not only the youth becoming employed, but they will be creating further employment opportunities for the ones they will in turn employ. I personally believe that through the increase of the entrepreneurial factor, there will be a visible decrease in the number of youths becoming radicalized and leaving our nation to become terrorists, which disqualifies the need of a Counter Radicalism Youth Policy. Madam Speaker, we are still developing as a nation. However, the opposition is expecting that changes such as poverty and low employment rate be addressed automatically. Madam Speaker, on the other hand, drastic changes such as these do not happen overnight. Permit me to inform the opposition. We are preparing today to change tomorrow. The preparation phase is still at work, and I guarantee that with the programs the government have in place today, we will see a brighter tomorrow. Thank you, Madam.
Member for Arapuch West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. So we know by now what is radicalization, but who are the ones considered to be the youth in our society? According to Merriam-Webster, a linguist, youth can be defined as a person in the early period of existence, growth, or development. So this is basically around the time where a young person is growing, where a young person is exploring their horizons and trying to find their identity. Youth radicalization can be caused by alienation from society, identity crisis, and unemployment. Some may say that religion is a part of youth radicalization, but let's throw that idea away. First of all, the Islamic community does not promote violence. Neither does any other religion. citizens who leave their country to join ISIS or any other radical groups aren't Muslim. They're imposters. Terrorists tend to hijack the Muslim religion to give themselves a false safe haven that the horrible and vicious acts that they commit are indeed in the name of Allah. Everybody knows that Muslims in the sweet Trinidad and Tobago are the most pleasant people you could meet. According to the Daily Motion 2016, an online article suggests that lack of job opportunities and frustration with the government and political system drive many young people to join radical groups. It's true that our nation's economy is beginning to decline, and due to this, employers are being forced to terminate their employees. However, we need more job opportunities. There are people with their master's and bachelor's degrees and many years of education who are home, unemployed or underdeployed. Where are the jobs? Why are they still home? So, Minister of Education and Minister of Work and Transport, are they going to school for style? According to the International website, stated that ISIS are now recruiting our tech-savvy youth via social media platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc., preying on their vulnerability. Sorry. So why are there teachers? Why aren't teachers educating the youth about this? They speak about cyberbullying, human trafficking, and being victimized on the internet by child predators. But why aren't they talking about youth radicalization? Why aren't they talking about why aren't they saying that we could be contacted by terrorists via social media? The Minister of Education should add this to the syllabus. Educators should speak about this in class to create awareness. Parents and guardians should also be advised about this. Also, we should create interventions on social media since this is the 21st century and majority of our population get the news from social media. This intervention should have local artists and youth speak about youth radicalization, and it should be able to change a young person's mind about joining terrorist groups like ISIS or thinking radically.
Member, your time has expired.
Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time for the member of Arapuch West be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I was saying, parents and guardians must also be aware of what their child could be exposed to via social media. This intervention will cost little to no money, so you don't have to ask where the money coming from. In conclusion, I believe that this policy
Would the member give way?
Help. No. I believe that this policy will help discourage the youth from yearning to engage in terrorist activities or join terrorist groups. We could seriously go back and forth as to what radicalization is, but we will always end up around the same alley, that our youth in this country are being radicalized. Their emotions and vulnerability are being toyed with by these extremists. Our youth population needs to be guided and protected with the Counter Radicalism Policy, Youth Policy. As Steve Jobs said, the people who are crazy enough to think that they can't change the world are the ones who usually do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members are reminded to make references to their colleagues either by their constituency or by their ministerial portfolio. Additionally, in accordance with Standing Order 4410, members are asked to refrain from reading their contributions unless making extensive quotations or references to notes. Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as clearly illustrated from the previous contributions made by the government, we do recognize the issue of youth radicalism as brought about by the motion of the opposition. But we, the government, believe this to be in the minority. The minority, Madam Speaker, as we have put enough measures in place to properly combat this issue. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Health has recognized that the psychological health of an individual plays an important factor in their proper functioning. Madam Speaker, the psychological health entails a person's thought process as well as their decision-making process. This decision-making process dictates whether if a person would be easily swayed to join these tyrannical organizations such as ISIS or other extremist groups. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Health has also recognized that the social unit of the family plays an integral role in the proper socialization of their children. To further analyze this point, there's a phrase which I believe reiterates this. Children emulate the behavior of those whom they're in constant contact with. Madam Speaker, this simply means that a child will display a behavior that is conducive to the environment in which they are placed in. In light of this, the Ministry of Health has partnered with the Ministry of Education in an attempt to, as we say, revamp this program of guidance counselors at the school level. These guidance counselors will now be required to observe these youths and identify these at-risk youths, as well as be available for these youths to seek help if they may be feeling swayed to join these organizations or other illegal activities. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Health has also partnered with the Ministry of Rural Development in an aid to distribute food badges. This was a direct initiative, Madam Speaker, to provide jobs to these youths as well as the basic necessity of food. Madam Speaker, I find it very whimsical that the opposition would bring about this motion today that is already being dealt with by the government in an effective and efficient manner. Madam Speaker, we, the government, recognize that our youth are our greatest asset. They are our pillars of strength, and they will one day lead our sweet Trinidad and Tobago to future development and prosperity. I thank you.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the member for Couva North, I'd say look up. The light is on you now. You alluded to the fact that these news reports have the potential to ruin our economic prospects. But I'd like to enlighten the general public and the government and the opposition here today. According to the Global Terrorism Index from the Institute for Economics and Peace, the global cost of terrorism for 2015 is estimated at US $89.6 billion. So I'd like to ask you, which do you think has more damage to our economic prospects? The global cost of terrorism or some mere news reports? Madam Speaker, radicalism is a burning topic in our global community, and by no means is it exempted from our borders. My colleagues on both sides of the spectrum have attributed this behavior to a series of socio-economic factors. However, this grave issue warrants grave concern, and all factors must be weighed as equally important in coming to a resolution. The Ministry of Public Utilities resonates highly in the excellent delivery of public utilities. Nevertheless, God forbid, if there so be the day that there be a breach in our national security, one of the main ways to infiltrate and cripple our economy is through our telecommunication services, our electrical services, and the delivery of water. As such, this ministry looks at this issue under a fine microscope and proposes to look at the concepts of radicalism and terrorism and propose amendments to the 2030 vision plan for this country and the national youth policy. Radicalism is the advocation of behavior, the advocation of social or political reform to specific behavior. Terrorism, according to the United States Code of Federal Regulations, is the unlawful use of violence to incite fear towards a civilian population, a government to achieve thorough or complete social or political reform. According to a UNDP survey done in 2016 in Serbia entitled The Drivers for Youth Radicalism and Violent Extremism in Serbia, noted that in recent decades, the global ideological and political spectrum has shifted to the right. This has been evidenced by the series of attacks in Yemen, Germany, France, and Somalia, just to name a couple of places. Madam Speaker, this issue should not take up hasty decisions. If we want to come to an effective solution, we must look at all of the factors and look at it through an international spectrum. Madam Speaker, this country, this great nation, has been doing a lot of work, and we are signatories to a lot of conventions to which we have been using to help us curb this issue. Let us look at the Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Act that is governed by the Act of 1997. The international criminal knows no boundaries, and as such, we must disregard the traditional notion of sovereignty when trying to curb this issue. Madam Speaker, the work of UN Lyric and UNDP not only reiterates the global stance of this country to curb this issue, but it also seeks the involvement of the youth, as the youth are the key contributors to the disarmament and indicator sessions to curb criminal activity within Latin America and the Caribbean. Madam Speaker, we do not need a counter radicalism youth policy. Need I remind the opposition that this is not the only arm of government. This policy will need to be sent to the executive and the judiciary. And we need to remember that enacting a new policy, we must review old policies. So which is more time-consuming? Reviewing old policies or reviewing old policies and looking at a new policy to remove this old policy? How do we expect something that we have to work if what we have is not working? We need to use our old policies and revamp them. And I endorse what the Minister of Trade and Energy Industries is saying, that we need to use our old policies instead of wasting our time to come to a new conclusion. To add to the solution, I endorse the Minister for Small and Micro Industries. There's a need for entrepreneurship in Trinidad and Tobago. Be there at the primary, secondary, or tertiary level. Entrepreneurship must be accredited within all student portfolios. The National Entrepreneurship Company of Trinidad and Tobago Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time for the Minister of Public Utilities be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Entrepreneurship is needed. It will provide an alternative to local, regional, and global problems, and it will provide the solution to reduce poverty, to which many attribute to be a key factor in promoting youth radicalism. Madam Speaker, the great late Madiba asserted that our choices should reflect our hopes, not our fears. Let us hold our youth at high esteem and reflect their best interests. The greatest asset to any country is its people. Let's not forget that the youth are people too. The youth are the fertilizers and nutrients of this great land that will carry us to greatness today, as evidenced by this National Youth Parliament, tomorrow, and ever forward. I thank
you. Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Firstly, I would like to make mention to a few terror attacks. The Barcelona terror attack, August 2017. Normandy terror attack, June 2017. London Bridge terror attack, June 2017. Paris terror attack, April 2017. Madam Speaker, no offense to the government, but are they so naive, regressive, and reactionary in their thinking to actually discern that their policies of superlative education, substantial job opportunities, and adequate housing actually rectify and resolve the problem of radicalism? The aforementioned terror attacks, Madam Speaker, occurred on the shores of some of the economic superpowers of the world. Are the government today surmising that all their policies outweigh and outmatch these developed and economic giants? The Minister of Public Utilities made mention to Somalia. So I assume that she knows about the bombing incident that occurred 2 weeks ago that killed at least 300 of its citizens. Are you, the government, awaiting such a magnitude of a devastation to actually occur on the shores of Trinidad, then to create a direct policy that actually resolves this issue? But radicalism is a problem that is extremely complex, multifaceted, and often intertwined. Madam Speaker, this quandary resists simplification and easy categorization. It should therefore be stated from the outset that there is no unique placenta or simple formula to end terrorism and radicalism. Madam Speaker, in the absence of universal measures, only a long-term and multi-pronged policy aimed at strengthening the institutional underpinnings of development, democracy, and security will achieve effective results. Madam Speaker, today I postulate the best way to bridge that gap between the government and opposition today is to drop the notion of war against terror in favor of a policy that is a campaign against radicalism. Madam Speaker, the tools to which to engage this policy will come to us by focusing on human development, not just economic growth, in countries where political, social, and economic conditions foment radicalism. In closing, Madam Speaker, I postulate that the policy of solving radicalism with human development should become the new public narrative and long-term objective for a smarter effort at strategic counter-radicalism. Thank you.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Allow me to recognize the members of the opposition, my colleagues on the government side, and all other persons in this honorable house. Good afternoon. And I realize that you all look a bit tired. I can't blame that on the opposition. Madam Speaker, the member for Oropouche West would have went into detail about how unemployment is a leading factor of radicalism today, Madam Speaker. But in the UNDP's discussion paper on the root causes of radicalization in Europe and the Commonwealth of Independent States, to which Trinidad and Tobago belongs, Madam Speaker, it was revealed, and I quote, "Suspects of radicalization are diverse in terms of race, social class, education, and family history." So contrary to what the opposition would like us to believe, any and everybody can become involved in radicalization. This shows me that the opposition has not been doing much research. Madam Speaker, allow me to bring this issue a bit closer to home for the sake of the opposition. On Sunday, the 5th of February, 2017, Gail Alexander wrote an article about young ISIS fighter Shane Crawford. In the article, Mr. Crawford's mother was quoted as saying that her son was brilliant. He had UE certificates, civil, police good character certificates, and he was building computers since 2003. Madam Speaker, this was not a young man who was poor, deprived, or alienated in any way. But Madam Speaker, he chose the path. He chose that violent path. And according to Graham Brown, we are what we choose to be. And we mourn with the family of Mr. Crawford because he was killed in October of last year. But again, Madam Speaker, he chose that violent path, which ultimately led him to his death. Madam Speaker, the opposition would like this House to believe that this government has not put policies in place to eradicate radicalization in our nation. But need I remind the opposition that there is a Trinidad and Tobago National Youth Policy. And it's a revised policy 2012 to 2017. Madam Speaker, and this came out of the 2004 to 2007 National Youth Policy. And the vision of the youth policy is to develop empowered young people who are able to make informed choices so that they can lead meaningful, enjoyable lives and contribute to the sustainable development of Trinidad and Tobago. And might I add, Madam Speaker, that we are also a part of the Curriculum Development Action Plan and the Commonwealth Plan of Action for Youth Empowerment. And my esteemed colleagues would have gone into detail about the programs that the ministries offer, but allow me to touch on the Ministry of Works and Transport for a brief moment. Madam Speaker, there's a Civil Aviation Training Center, and it was established way back in 1963. And under the Civil Aviation Training Center, we are devoted to the development of the next generation of aviation professionals. Madam Speaker, I ask the opposition, is this not a government who is developing and empowering our youth? Madam Speaker, secondly, there is the Coastal Data Exchange Program. And I quote from the Ministry of Works and Transport website. In 2016, the Ministry of Works and Transport partnered with UE to facilitate the sharing of data collected by the ministry along the east coast of Trinidad. And Madam Speaker, flooding and coastal erosion is a major problem plaguing our nation today. And what the government is doing is giving the youth of Trinidad and Tobago we are giving them the chance to become involved in the problem solving. So we understand that the youth are the future, so that we are influencing the productivity of our youth, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would also like to add that in a telephone interview with Mr. Adande Pigot, the senior traffic engineer at the Ministry of Works and Transport, he highlighted the mentorship program. And what this mentorship program is that graduates from UE and UTT have the opportunity to become mentored by senior persons in the Ministry of Works and Transport. We are giving jobs to our youth, empowering them, developing them, Madam Speaker. And I ask the government again, is this not a government who is empowering and developing our youth? So, Madam Speaker, do we have policies and programs in place to positively develop our youth? The answer is yes. And Madam Speaker, need I remind the opposition again that there's a Trinidad and Tobago youth policy. All that is missing from that is the word radicalization.
To inform you that your time has expired.
Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honourable members, The question is that the speaking time of the Minister of Works and Transport be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was just about to conclude. As I was saying, we have programs and policies in place to positively influence our youth. And under the Ministry of Works and Transport alone, we have the Civil Aviation Training Center, which is developing and employing our youth. We have the Coastal Exchange Program, again developing and employing our youth, and the Mentorship Program. Need I repeat myself? Employing and developing our youth. Madam Speaker, I believe the opposition wants us, the government, to force the youth into these programs. I simply cannot understand it. And if that is what they are asking us to do, Madam Speaker, they will be asking us to quell the freedom of choice in a democratic state. And Madam Speaker, that is oxymoronic. And this government cannot and will not stand for it. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister of Tourism.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the member of Caroni and Couva North, I would like to buy a phone, wouldn't you? I would love to probably rent an island, own an island. But simply saying where there is a will, there is a way will not promote this. My bills will still have to be paid, and my wife will still take out of my pocket. That is simply it. That is simply it. Now, all terrorists are radicals, but not all radicals end up as terrorists. Professor Omer Taspinash of the National Security College in Washington, D.C. A pleasant good afternoon, Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Speaker, Opposition Leader, and of course my fellow parliamentarians. Now, as the Minister of Tourism, I understand the various intricacies revolving around terrorism and, in further, radicalism. However, I oppose the suggestion of introducing a new Counter Radicalism policy. But, Madam Speaker, what is radicalism and in turn terrorism? According to the late Egon Bittner, professor of sociology at the California University, he stated that radicalism is a fundamental change. It is the commitment to fundamental change, and terrorism is the use of violence to pursue these. But, Madam Speaker, my question is, why would a youth in an isle such as ours want to become involved in such an activity? Now, I've come across 3 main stances upon this. These were limited youth employment, poverty, and the lack of intercultural exchange and understanding. Now, Madam Speaker, as the Minister of Tourism, allow me to take you across a journey across this multicultural land of that Trinity. We begin at youth employment. Now, there's a colleague of mine and his father. They live on the Isle of Maracas. They have a boat. Occasionally, they will go out, whether it may be to enjoy a sail or fishing. But the father recognized that with all the tourists passing by daily, he can use this, his own resource, to promote income. Sometimes he, or even his son alone, will go out on the shores and gives the tourists a tour guide. This, my friends, is our tourism industry. We promote unemployment unlike any other in this world, Madam Speaker. We promote direct employment in the form of accommodation and transportation services, indirect employment in the forms of impact of purchases from suppliers, and induced employment in the forms of employees who purchase housing and household items and so forth and so on. Now, in 2016, the travel and tourism community contributed a total of 10.6% of this total employment, 69,000 jobs, Madam Speaker. 69,000. Look at the time. I believe it's time to get to our next critical destination in this beautiful island. Not poverty, I'm sorry. Lack of intercultural exchange and understanding. Professor Sherma Roberts, lecturer at the Cahill campus in Barbados, as well as the chairman for the tourism board, stated that tourism is used as a tool for intercultural understanding and exchange. She further went on to say that it's used to break xenophobic barriers. Madam Speaker, the simple fact is, many youth today do not know the world outside of themselves, but tourism. Tourism promotes a way to break these xenophobic barriers, and mainly through sports tourism. Many will remember the year 2015, yes, Madam Speaker, when our great nation held the CPL T20 finals. According to the Central Statistical Office, over 6,000 individuals, tourists, came specifically to enjoy the sporting event in a stadium where joyous horns are blowing, there's fun and dancing. The true epitome of a Trini line, Madam Speaker, is where these xenophobic barriers are broken. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? And if you poison us, do we not die? We are all one. William Shakespeare. Now, Madam Speaker, as I get to my final point, I'd just like to elaborate that in accordance with the Ministry of Tourism...
Member, I regret to inform you that your time has expired.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I seek the agreement of the House to speak for a further 3 minutes.
Honourable members, the question is that the Minister of Tourism be given the time to speak for an additional 3 minutes. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as we get to our final destination, because I believe the ferry is outside, it's poverty. Romans 12:2. For transformation comes from the renewal of the mind. Madam Speaker, poverty is a mindset. According to the International Conservation Organization, they stated that locals usually tend to underappreciate their surroundings. And it's only when individuals or tourists come from outside and takes a fresh and an enthusiastic look towards their resources is when that entrepreneurial spirit within them truly arises. Madam Speaker, we, the Ministry of Tourism, facilitate and awaken that entrepreneurial spirit among youth across this nation. You could catch a crab? Why not try your hand at a crab and dumpling? You know you have a car, you know your landmarks. Start a little tour guide initiative. This is our tourism industry. And Madam Speaker, as I regret to say, as the sun sets on this illustrious journey, I leave you with these 3 things. Tourism is an eradicator of radicalism. We promote employment across the spectrum. We take the spotlight off of poverty, Madam Speaker, and shine it on entrepreneurial opportunity. My opposition, there's no need for any counter radicalism policy. As we have already shown you, there are many initiatives already set in stone. I thank you.
Member for Komoto and Manzanino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to contribute on a crucial issue involving our youth. The talk of youth radicalism and terrorism are the core of discussion in this distinguished chamber today. I would like to treat with some of the myopic views brought about by some of the members on the government side. The Minister of Planning stated that this initiative that we are embarking upon is a waste of time. I am extremely grieved, as this shows a clear neglect of the government towards our youth. In addition, the Minister of Finance stated that now is not the time. I ask him, if not now, then when? Are we waiting for the majority of youths to be recruited till we awaken? As Member of Parliament for Komoto Manzanilla, my concern continuously flows in the direction of our youth as they represent our nation's future. Radicalism is by no means the path for young people to walk. Hence, I stand firmly onto the proposal of a counter-youth radicalism policy. I ask the question, what is the root cause for young people engaging in these activities? As the faces of our youth differ, so too are the causes for their radicalized behavior. Research has shown that radicalism stems from a diverse range of factors. However, my presentation will be focused on the psychological factors, some of which include personal identity, status seeking, and the acceptance of revenge as an acceptable goal. Madam Speaker, Dr. Anne Speckard, a professor of psychiatry at Georgetown University, highlighted that the main drivers of radicalism lies in trauma and revenge. And in non-conflict zones, motivators are discrimination, personal significance, frustrated aspirations, and the desire for adventure. In addition, Professor Dr. Irie Kruglansky, in an article published titled Psychology of Radicalization 2014, declares that young people engage in radicalism for the quest of significance, involving desires to be someone, to be appreciated, to achieve, to be respected, and to earn a sense of value. Faris Hussein Al-Ansi, professor of Islamic Studies, once stated, and I quote, "Government's inability to understand terror as the expression of neo-fascism is what has prevented us from finding real solutions. Terror has been a plague unto the world, not just the Western society. Terror is a global problem, a modern cancer that we can no longer afford to underestimate through sectarian labeling. We, the opposition, are extending a helping hand to the government because we are kind, offering efficient policy frameworks for this uprising and detrimental crisis to dissolve. Madam Speaker, the bigger picture of this issue lies in a solution plan. Some key solutions proposed include parental assistance initiatives to promote developmental youth nurturing, establishment of community-based programs to encourage social belonging, improvement of training programs aimed at skills development, maintenance of counseling services to assist psychologically affected youth, promotion of social youth clubs comprising of workshops to uplift national youth, and provision of career guidance as early as primary school in the form of career days and career fairs to deter youth from pathways of violence and to place on the promotion list fulfilling job options. The Counter Radicalism Youth Policy. This Counter Radicalism Youth Policy represents a holistic documentation with an aim of systematically addressing and efficiently solving youth radicalism. The United Nations Education...
Member, I regret to inform you that your time has expired.
Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes to complete my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time for the member for Komoto Manzanilla be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, all members. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization highlights that disarming the process of radicalization must begin with human rights and the rule of law, with dialogue across all boundary lines, by empowering young men and women, and by starting as early as possible on the benches of schools. Hence, this agrees and corresponds with the prime vision of the opposition. Why do we need this policy? It is needed to prevent youth involvement in terrorism which can lead to increased criminality and social unrest. The youth of this country must not be sliding down the drains of violence and destruction, sending their purpose to waste. They need the strong hand, grip, and hold of an efficient policy, such as the one proposed, to take them out, to rescue them. They cannot be driving on hopeless roads and meaningless highways. Now, what could this policy entail? In constructing this strategic policy, ideas can be extracted from the UN Plan of Action for Preventing Violent Extremism. Madam Speaker, this UN projection focuses on 7 key focal points, which include conflict prevention, strengthening good governance, engaging communities, empowering youth, gender equality, education and employment facilitation, and strategic communications. Madam Speaker, in closing, the youth are psychologically pressured into the entrance door of radicalism. However, they are not going to be suppressed by this deceitful yet brainwashing concept. The opposition stands committed to the introduction and implementation of a Counter Radicalism Youth Policy. Hence, we seek the government's support as we realize there is a dire need for an innovative model to help the misdirected youth across this beautiful twin island. As an opposition member, I stand with every boy, girl, woman, and man to demolish, overtake, and overcome this giant called youth radicalism. I thank you.
Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am honored to contribute on this pertinent motion, which intends or hopes to deal with a counter-radicalism youth policy. But, Madam Speaker, it has been a long day. And I almost fell asleep in my seat because all I'm hearing is radicalism, radicalism, radicalism. Several definitions. But, however, the issue is not radicalism, but radicalism as it pertains to terrorism and terror. So let me ask this Honorable House to you, Madam Speaker. Who or what is a radical? Is the politician who risks his lives and limb to cross the seas between these two beautiful islands for a pertinent issue considered a radical? Madam Speaker, is the outspoken student who has excellent leadership qualities and has a tendency to lead a class considered a radical? Madam Speaker, is the single-parent mother who sells 3 vests for $20 on Charlotte Street illegally considered a radical? Madam Speaker, allow me to quote from Andy Fitzgerald, a PhD candidate at Stanford and also an intern at the Guardian Media internationally and several other media houses. And he states, the word radical often has negative connotations, but their actions can be necessary to bring about true social change. And there has been several definitions concerning radicalism. But I'd like to commend the member for St. Augustine. She really made my job easy this afternoon. I loved her definition. Madam Speaker, even in our local history, we can consider persons like Uriah Bus Butler, Dr. Eric Williams, the late Patrick Manning, and A.N.R. Robinson as radicals. And I believe we all should become radicalized for the betterment of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, as we aim to establish a policy, we need to take into consideration all aspects of Trinidad and Tobago culture and life. We need to enjoy and scrutinize the culture, scrutinize our social norms, scrutinize our legal systems, because this government aims to create a cohesive and a nice togetherness between all the ministries. Because as you would have heard today, these ministries are working together very smoothly. And we haven't seen that in a very long time. Madam Speaker, in an effort to create social change, I stand here proudly representing Lavantil East and Morvant, what some might consider a high-risk community. But, Madam Speaker, I can assure you in the next few years to come, Laventille will become a model community in what we call urban farming, as we would have recently launched the Laventille Youth Growers Program, a program aimed at teaching hydroponics, aquaponics, pot and turf culture, which basically means farming in smaller areas. So to my member for Caroni Central, don't worry, we are dealing with agriculture in a very diplomatic way. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, we are presently exploring and looking at the Singapore model of urban farming. Allow me to quote from the Singapore and the FAO report, Part 9 for innovation in agriculture, food safety, and food security. And in a quote they made by Jose de Silva, the FAO's General Director, the world can learn from Singapore's success stories. Commercial indoor and rooftop vegetable farms are opening up, and other urban farming and peri-urban agricultural initiatives are taking shape. And Madam Speaker, we are almost there. We are working on stuff. Madam Speaker, you can just check out the ministry's website. You will find there a nice, well-put-together, clear-cut fact sheet on hydroponics. The information is easy and it's free to be accessed. And we also have extension officers ready and waiting to go out into these fields and assist persons in establishing their own forms or styles of urban farming. Also, Madam Speaker, we would have partnered with the Agricultural Development Bank in creating easy loans for persons wishing to establish their business. And continuing that, Madam Speaker, it is quite clear to me that we have a reactive opposition and a proactive government. Because, Madam Speaker, if there was no opportunity, I can assure you we would not be standing in this August House addressing the citizens of this great country of Trinidad and Tobago.
Member, I regret to inform you that your time has expired.
Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honourable members, the question is that the speaking time for the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you have a child with deviant behavior, you would not just call that child. You would ask, why are they deviant behavior? So I would like to ask the member opposite, have you guys interviewed anybody who would have departed this country or this island to go and partake in terrorist activity? The country with the most holidays? The country that was voted the happiest country in the world? Madam Speaker, I am poorly disappointed. Madam Speaker, suggesting poverty when there are so much grants and poverty eradication program, suggesting a limitation of employment when the local print media, which the opposition seems to like, always have vacancies. Madam Speaker, suggesting alienation from society when there are numerous amounts of patriotic organizations seeking members. Madam Speaker, I would like to suggest absurd, but I would refrain from that because I believe we have a lot of learned colleagues on the opposite side. Madam Speaker, I would also like to ask them, because despite several attempts by the members on my side, like they fall in love with the media, because I want to know who you guys are representing. Is it the international media? Is it the local media? Or is it your constituents? Because you come into this August House, establish a policy. But where have been the consultations? I have not heard of a tongue meeting in Caroni Central, in Tabakit, in Shoguanas West. Don't speak about Superior. So, don't come and expect us to rush it. And Madam Speaker, you know they love the media. So I can imagine the headline. Government rushes to establish a radicalism policy. Opposition furious.
Member, give way.
I am very sorry.
Okay.
In closing, Madam Speaker, I would like to inform all the members opposite that this government has no issue in appointing a joint select committee to adequately, and I repeat, adequately examine any youth policy. But, Madam Speaker, I was hoping for a more positive motion, to be quite honest with you. For example, a youth progressive development plan. But instead, we got a reckless, a careless, and an audacious attempt to create fear in the citizens of this country, and I cannot tolerate that. Madam Speaker, let me extend an invitation to all members opposite. If you guys need assistance, you can get in contact with us. We don't bite. So give us a phone call. You need help? Come to our offices. We are ready and willing to help you guys. So I thank you.
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I just express how honored I am to address the House today. I would like to open with a quote from Ziggy Marley, and I quote, "Children are the world's future, and we need to take care of them like we would in any precious resource," end quote. Thank you, St. Augustine, Oxford Dictionary, for your multiple definitions. Unfortunately, that is all I have grasped from your presentation. May I recall from the member of St. Augustine, ages 3 to 15? May I ask the member for St. Augustine, where is the evidence to support this claim? Madam Speaker, the government's main focus as we speak is the youth of Trinidad and Tobago. In light of this, the Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs is the coordinating agency for our youth development, continuing to consult and partner with our young people, youth workers, and stakeholders to address youth development matters while providing directions, leadership, facilitation, and coordination. May I remind the opposition that there are current laws and policies which prosecute criminals and terrorists to the fullest extent of the law. These laws are to be further revised by my colleague, the Minister of National Security, and by extension, the government. Madam Speaker, the world as we know it today faces challenges of violence and terrorism. The values of truth, tolerance, integrity, and inclusiveness need to be impacted on our youth to make our country a safer and better Trinidad and Tobago. Don't you agree? One objective from the Minister of Education is to ensure that our educational services transform the youth into capable, knowledgeable, and worthy citizens. However, some may not necessarily be academically inclined. Our aim is to provide proper education that is available to all, as well as hands-on developing national, technical, and vocational competencies. As mentioned by the Minister of Labour and Small Enterprise Development, both avenues can go so far as to create entrepreneurship businesses. We have already developed a system that extends its flexibility to cater to Trinidad and Tobago's youth, stretch the brilliant ones, but also help those less academically inclined and all those in between, in addition to scholarships provided by the Minister of Public Administration. Madam Speaker, this leads me to my next point. Just a little reiteration for the opposition, that guidance counselors are already trained to deal with psychological health of students. The Ministry of Education, in partnership with the Ministry of Health, plan to improve existing programs to further help students as well as teachers to ensure one is in a healthy state of mind. Solutions to unemployment in Trinidad and Tobago were presented by the Ministry of Tourism. We, the government, can only provide opportunities. However, as the Minister of Transport and Attorney General commented, it is the people's choice to seek their own interests. Madam Speaker, cyber terrorism and the point of how mass media affects the views of radicalism and how it has been glorified was identified by the Minister of Communications and the Minister of Community Development, Culture, and the Arts. In addition, the Minister has identified the existing programs to facilitate illiteracy and provide courses to gain physical hands-on training. The youth have been persuaded to join radicals to feel a sense of belonging because of alienation from society. The Minister of Social Development and Family Services has already stipulated services for dysfunctional family units, unemployment, and poverty. Statistics were postulated by the Minister of Agriculture, Land, and Fisheries as to the persons trained to facilitate the farming industry and the improvement of workshops. Madam Speaker, something to think deeply about. Seeing that the opposition is tempting to establish a Counter Radicalism Youth Policy, why haven't we heard anything in terms of details? Why is that? This debate has practically come to an end. And any new ideas? No. Any new implementations? No. Except the member of Mayaro, Shogunas East. What are really doing? Madam Speaker, why are we brought here today? The opposition is clearly confused because after hearing the member for, is it Oripuch West? Wow, clueless. To their own introduction to their own youth policy. What is really going on? No communication? I think not. Madam Speaker, why are we brought here today to discuss a policy that only includes something as little as a name and not a real purpose for our youth of the sweet islands of Trinidad and Tobago? Why is it that the opposition continuously, quote-unquote, throw talk for the government instead of lending a helpful hand to eradicate the problem together? In closing, Madam Speaker, a quote from...
Time has expired.
Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my presentation.
Honourable members, the question is that the speaking time of the Honourable Prime Minister be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In closing, a quote from Oliver Tambo, a past president of the South African National Congress, and I quote, "The children of any nation are its future. A country, a movement, a person that does not value its youth and children does not deserve its future." Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
It has indeed been a long day. I want to thank everybody from the various sides of the House for their contributions this fine day, and permit me, to further contribute. There has been mentioned, the various programs that the government has instituted. For example, CCC, YTC, NESC, HYPE, ALTA, and so on and so forth. But my question to you is, and listen, because you didn't listen at all. Listen. How long were these programs formed? How long were these programs or policies implemented? These results that we are getting, the statistics that we have presented to you, are from as close as or as recent as August 26, 2017, February 26, 2017. And I ask you, what are these programs doing? Because to my recollection, or should I say, to my understanding, if these programs and policies were functioning adequately and doing what they were supposed to do, we would not be here in front of this House, in this august chamber, discussing this issue today. It wouldn't have been relevant. So why is it relevant? Now, I want to know, where did any of the opposition members, blame the Minister of Education? Again, you didn't listen. Now, I ask the government to stop having so much pride in your programs. Stop having pride in your policies. Stop being ignorant and naive to the matter of what is happening in the country at the moment. And the fact is that youths, young people from Trinidad and Tobago, our sweet T&T, have left to join groups such as ISIS. And what are we doing about it? We are here talking about your prideful programs and policies. I beg to differ. No, I will not. Please sit. Now, let me bring this to your attention, because clearly Maybe the Minister of National Security doesn't know. But as of today, we have over 400 murders in Trinidad and Tobago. There has been, today is October 31st, 284 days have passed. And there's 400 murders in Trinidad and Tobago. Now I understand that you apparently don't see this being a problem, and you are trivializing the crime, the murder toll or crime in Trinidad and Tobago. But why trivialize radicalism? Why trivialize our youth? Again, should I blame you for your incompetency and inability to see the facts? I think not, right? Now, if our country were to be held victim of radicalism, where would we stand? Where does our country gain its economic prospects from? We are a producer of oil and natural gas, and such corporations, such companies, such institutions, such as BP, would no longer want to come upon our shores to do business with a country that is involved in radicalism and, by extension, terrorism. Now, I beg you, please open your eyes and see that this is in fact a problem. Open your eyes and see that we need to deal with this issue. And to the Minister of Finance, good afternoon. Now, I must say, we should not procrastinate. This is a matter of utmost importance. And I say, if we come together, I extend my hand. If we come together, we can deal with this.
Your time has expired.
Madam Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Members are reminded that silence is expected when a member is giving their contribution in the chamber. Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time for the Leader of the Opposition be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. No. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would just like to say in closing, we asked for a policy to be implemented, not a program. And as the member for Laventil, is that West? Right? Would say, did you know the difference between policy and program?
Do you give way?
No. Okay, I would just like to say in closing again, once more, the member for Le Hospital Talparo, you were quoting me and said that I did say that we needed to nip this in the bud. But if you said that we already nipped it in the bud, why are people still leaving? Why are our youth still leaving? Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to move.
Honorable members, the question is, be it resolved that the government seek to establish a Counter Radicalism Youth Policy that will identify the root causes of any attraction of radicalism and terrorism to young citizens, and that will dissuade young citizens from becoming involved therein. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The clerk will now take a division.
Mr. Rockbear?
No.
Miss Friday?
No.
Miss Bernard?
No.
Mr. Constantine?
Absolutely no.
Miss Felix?
No.
Mr. Boudram?
No.
Miss Cook?
No.
Mr. Sukdeo?
No.
Mr. Rayburn?
Not so long as we have the government seat.
Miss Clark?
No.
Miss Muhammad?
No.
Mr. Dino?
Of course not.
Miss Benjamin?
No.
Mr. Bayer?
No.
Miss Simon?
No.
Mr. Ayung?
No.
Miss Charles?
No.
Miss Richards?
Absolutely no.
Mr. Herod?
No.
Miss Whittier?
No.
Mr. Arlene?
Most certainly not.
Miss Rampasad?
Absolutely not.
Miss Bola?
No.
Miss Manchan?
Yes.
Miss Monroe?
Yes.
Miss James?
Yes. Members are reminded that silence is to be upheld in the chamber when a division is occurring. Also be mindful that a simple yes or no is suffice in order for the division to occur. Thank you.
Mr. Cornwall?
Yes.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Miss Balchan?
Yes.
Miss Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. John?
Yes.
Miss Smith?
Yes.
Miss Taylor?
Yes.
Miss Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Dwarka?
Yes.
Mr. Ramcharan?
Yes.
Miss Lafon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Ramata?
Yes.
Miss McIntosh?
Yes.
Miss Ramratan?
Yes.
Madam Speaker, the results for division are 23 against and 18 for.
Clock. Again, please. 18. Honorable members, the result of the division is 18 members voted for, 23 members voted against, and 0 members abstained. The motion has been negatived. The Leader of the House.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn to a date to be fixed.
Honorable members, before I put the question, allow me to express appreciation on behalf of all members of this Youth Parliament to the Trinidad and Tobago branch of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, CPA, and the Parliament, in particular, the Planning Committee of the Office of the Parliament, which organized this 15th sitting of the National Youth Parliament. Today's debate focused on the root causes of and solutions for the radicalism of youth towards the establishment of a Counter Radicalism Youth Policy. And the contributions made by you, honorable members, were comprehensive and sought to highlight the various issues surrounding this issue. We, the members of this 15th National Youth Parliament, trust that the concerns raised and the proposals made during the debate will provide those in authority with a youth perspective on this issue. We wish to express our deepest gratitude to all officials who accepted our invitation and graced us with their presence, to our schools and institutions for selecting us, our family and relatives who exercised patience and assisted us in preparing for the debate. We say thank you. During our intense weeks of tutoring, we were trained by Ms. Catherine Gordon, who coached us on dress etiquette and civility, Mrs. Helen Drayton, who took us through the paces with respect to debating skills and aspects of debate, and the staff of the Office of the Parliament, who taught us oratory skills and the rules of parliamentary practice and procedure. Mention must also be made of the coordinating team of the Parliament, who contributed in varying measures to the successful execution of this event. They provided guidance on how we should utilize all of our skills we learned in our debate earlier today, and to them I say a special thank you. To the Minister of National Security and its agencies, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Defense Force, and Trinidad and Tobago Fire Services, the member for Tobago East, Mrs. Ayana Webster Roy and her staff, and the staff of the Marshals, Office of the Parliament, for the provision of transportation, we say a heartfelt thank you. It was truly a distinguished privilege to have participated in this annual debate. May I now kindly ask that you remain seated after the adjournment for a brief award ceremony. Thank you. Honorable members, the question is that this House do now adjourn to a date to be fixed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. The House now stands adjourned to a date to be fixed.
Very good. You're tired? Oh, that's too bad. I need everyone to take their seats. Yeah? All right, come on in. Everyone who's coming back. Come on in, quick. Yeah, good on. Yeah. You all look better in those seats than I do. Yeah? Yes. Okay, so we are about to begin the a little bit less formal part of the day's proceedings. Let me first of all congratulate each and every one of you all for your participation in the 15th National Youth Parliament. Yeah. My name is Atiba Wilshire, for those of you all who can't remember. I'm one of the corporate communications officers here at the Office of the Parliament, and it's my pleasure to once again be the Master of Ceremonies for you all. All right? Okay, so we're going to move right along. We are going into a brief congratulatory note that will be given to you all by the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George.
Thank you, Mr. Wilshire. To the Speaker of the Youth Parliament, Madam Prime Minister, Leader of the House, Leader of the Opposition, and Chief Whip, and all parliamentarians, your teachers, your parents, your other guests, to Madam Speaker, to your gallery. Okay, and therefore I recognize the President of the Senate, other members of Parliament. We have ministers and other MPs here. The Vice President of the Senate is one of the judges, and the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. I want to say on behalf of all of us present here today that you all have really given us a very lively debate, full of information and full of hope for not the future, for today. Okay, because sometimes we say the youth is the future. I think the youth is today. I want to say that I think everybody understood their roles. I had an opportunity to sit for most of the day and see almost everyone in their roles. I looked at the attendant who recognized that his role was important in facilitating the members, but yet not causing a disturbance. He went through this chamber, and I'm sure not even the air was disturbed. And there was one opportunity one occasion when he was coming up the well, and the speaker stood up, and he stopped dead in his tracks. And I mean, if that is not an understanding of his role, then nothing is. I think that your participation achieves some of the objectives that the Parliament has set out. I think when I met with you all initially, I told you all that one of the strategic objectives of the Parliament is parliamentary outreach. And this is one of the methods we use for parliamentary outreach. I think about 47 of you all have participated in this altogether. But in reaching the 47 of you all, I mean, we have also engaged your teachers and your parents, your schools, and a lot of the listening public in helping demystify a lot of what we do in Parliament. The topic in itself, some of us considered it a hard topic. You all made it look like an easy topic, okay? And I think, if I just remember, I think it would have been this young man. You're the Minister of Agriculture. I think it's the Minister of Agriculture, who has said that all terrorists are radicals, but not all radicals or terrorists. Who said that? Tourism, yes, the Minister of Tourism. And for me, I think that that short statement really summarized an appreciation of radicalism. Because involving radicalism is change, right? And I think change is always associated with youth. But he made the point, it's a question of how you try to achieve change by violent means. So I think that statement alone, for me, was a takeaway, with you all appreciating what we were trying to get. Not so much as radicalism, but as it's expressed in the violent side, the negative, and terrorists and violence and so on. I think what you all showed, apart from just participating, I know it would have taken a lot from you all with respect to your schoolwork and coming here, but so it showed your commitment, it showed your dedication. But I want to really also commend you all in your use of the standing orders. It meant that you all knew that there are rules by which Parliament operates. And you all understood the rules, and you all employed the rules. People stood up Standing Order 44.8, Standing Order 44.10. You all understood how an interruption is made. I think for some of us, when we interrupted, we weren't too sure what was to happen next. But it is at least expected that the member would say yes or no. And some members did that. The role of the whip. And I think the whip on the government side started cracking his whip the second opportunity, because the whip enforces sort of party discipline. And in the first division whip, I see you had a challenge in that some of your members voted conscience. And that really doesn't happen in a party system unless that order is given. But I see on the second occasion, you got your members together and they did what they were supposed to do. So I commend you all. I think the level of research that was displayed in your contributions was really remarkable. The way members were able not just to use research that is out there, but also to marry it with things that are happening in the current environment. One member said that they don't want us to be the seventh country to make Trump's list of banned countries. That's one of the things I remembered. So that it meant that you all did your work, you understood the topic, you understood debating skills, because most people got up and they gave a rebuttal for something that happened, was said by either the speaker immediately before them or some other speaker. So it means that you all understand what a debate is. I must commend your decorum. I think it's a little stricter than what is practiced and what is expected. Okay, I mean, Madam Speaker really cracks a mean whip. Okay, but in terms of decorum, I think it was excellent, and also your mode of dressing. All right, you will have to be commended on that. I think, if I remember well, there was a young lady whom she had said at the first meeting we had with you all that she wanted to be a parliamentarian, and people were very negative about her wanting to be a parliamentarian. And I think I do remember, not just that was said, but I think I remember and identify the lady well who said that. And I want to tell you, you are a parliamentarian. Okay? And so are many of you. So are many of you. Some of you all provided us with a bit of more reflection than might be usual, because in some of you all, we saw some of us. Okay? And the Minister of Health had a particular style that was familiar. And oh Lord, the Minister of Finance. And the Minister of Finance didn't limit it to his contribution. All throughout, he acted the part. Not that we ask you to act your part, anybody's part, but we saw some of us in some of you all. You all were confident, and what I liked is the way you all used the thumping of the desk. In that the thumping of the desk could be carried to the extent to be a disturbance. You all had it contained, but you all always also used it to be supportive. When you all saw one of the, and it was from both sides. Okay? I saw the government thumping when somebody on this side was kind of faltering, so it was no near your own bench, and I think that also has to be commended. Now with the extended time, most of you all were very generous, and generally we do grant the extension of time. I saw on some occasions the government said no. I was once part of a parliament when we were on the government side and we said no to. So that sort of confirms for me that you all do watch the channel. Right? But I want to say that the takeaway for me, and I hope the takeaway for you all, is that adversity, an adversarial system does not necessarily mean that one must lack civility, lack respect, lack decorum, okay, lack courtesy, because you all didn't display that. You all understood it was an adversarial system, but in all the contributions, even when you gave somebody a dig, it was still within the confines of being respectful. And I think that's important for us to understand. Being adversarial does not mean being nasty, uncouth, so that I also want to commend you all with respect to that. I hope that you all continue to be, from this exposure, ambassadors for democracy. We tend to take democracy for granted. And I think it was this young lady here who spoke, and not that anybody else didn't, but I do remember her making the point, as if you all want to say, we must force this on people, force people into programs, but in terms of valuing what democracy is, we should never take it for granted. And even outside of the formal process of being a parliamentarian, we all, as citizens, have to be advocates and watchdogs of democracy. So again, on behalf of all the members of Parliament who are here, and I just want to tell you also that because your backs were to us, during the course of the day, we've had the Minister of Education, we've had the Minister of Sport, the Minister of Planning and Development, we now have the Minister of Agriculture, we have the Minister of Tourism, we've had the Parliament Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, the Parliament Secretary in the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. We've had the Deputy Speaker. We now have the member for Princestown. We have Senator Wade Mark, Senator Small. We had Senator Mahabir. We had Senator Avinash Singh. We still have Senator, Member of Parliament Parry. We have 2 of the 3 newly installed senators, Senator Haynes and Senator Hussain, right? So that we've had, at least, if I recall, we've had over 20 parliamentarians pass through here to listen to you all today. Okay, so I want to thank you all for a very, again, lively debate, educational and informed debate, and I wish you all well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Now we have someone, a young gentleman, coming to speak to you all on the topic of youth radicalism. and he is the Vice Chairperson of Policy, Advocacy, and Projects at the Commonwealth Youth Council. His name is Mr. Nikolai Edwards.
Pleasant good afternoon, everyone. All protocols having been observed. Now, I must say that I was thoroughly impressed with what I witnessed here today. Coming into Parliament, one expects that adversarial nature that the Speaker just mentioned. But I do think that the way the affairs of this House was conducted today is testament to the fact that the country, once it's in the hands of the young people of today coming forward, would be in good hands. Because you have displayed, and I think everyone can attest to this, a certain level of research, a certain level of confidence and passion in what you were presenting today, and that definitely showed. Now, I represent the Commonwealth Youth Council. We represent, in effect, 1.2 billion young people across the 52 countries of the Commonwealth, and I'm a part of the 9-member executive. And we have a number of issues on our plate that we fight very firmly for. And one of the things that we are very much concerned with is peace building. And as young persons in society today, we recognize that there is a need for things such as mediation, conflict resolution, peace ambassadors. And the responsibility is really on your shoulders at this point, because that same level of or a desire to bring about peace is something that you must carry everywhere with you, in your schools, in your community, when you have opportunities like this, because you are very fortunate today to be sitting down here and participating in this, the 15th National Youth Parliamentary Debate, because it could have been other young people here, but something about you attracted your teacher or your guardian to present you to the National Youth Parliament. And you must take that responsibility and run with it. As I was speaking with some of your colleagues today over lunch, I was saying to them that this discussion that takes place here today must continue. There are many persons who are not even aware of the National Youth Parliament. And I can tell you, growing up, I used to look at the National Youth Parliament on television and hope and pray that one day I would be here as part of the National Youth Parliament. Now, granted, that opportunity never came around, but I had the opportunity to actually be in the Senate at the age of 25. On the independent bench, making history in that regard. And that just simply says to me that there is potential in us as young people, and it is being recognized. There are persons who are looking on at every single thing that you do. So you must conduct yourself in a manner that is appropriate. You must show what you have to offer to this world, because we cannot continue to simply expect things to be put before us. We have to get up and go and get it. And that is what this work requires. Now, being in Parliament, a lot of the times persons think, well, oh gosh, Parliament, and it's big, and this, that, and the other, and it's so important. It is important. But I want to let you know something. The building is not that which is important. It's the business that is conducted in here that is important. It affects our everyday lives. And you have an opportunity as you prepare to take up positions of leadership over the next couple of years to bring that kind of thinking and that kind of importance to the work that you do, no matter what it is. You can be doing community work under an NGO or CBO. Give it your best. Every single thing that you do, give it your best. Two of the things that I am fighting for in my everyday life is reformation of the criminal justice system, as well as youth. And many persons will ask, why youth? For the last decade, young people have been leading many of the charges around the world for change. When we think about the civil rights movement, when we think about the salt wars, when we think about even Black Lives Matter right now around the world, it's young people just like yourselves. So don't let anyone ever underestimate your potential. You have to go out there and be the change ambassadors. You have to be the ones who challenge the status quo, not for being rebellious sake, but for actually advocating for something that you know will benefit all of us as a people, because we must coexist here in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean, and in the wider world. So just to comment, I would hope moving forward that you will carry this information that you've learned here, share it with your colleagues. Let persons know that you took part in the National Youth Parliamentary debate and let them know how they can get involved so that they can start preparing themselves. Don't let it be a situation where you have close friends and they don't even know about your participation. Spread the message. Let people know that there are opportunities in this country for young people all around, and they simply have to get up and go after it. I would like to say that I would have liked to see a person who is differently abled having access to the National Youth Parliamentary debate, and that is something for consideration moving forward. I am pleased with the male to female ratio. A lot of times you see one outshining the other. I think that we have a good ratio with us. I would like to see more Tobagonians be a part of the National Youth Parliamentary debate, yeah. Right, and lastly, what I would like to say is that as much as my colleague, the Vice President of the Senate, because we all sat there as judges, would speak on behalf of us as judges and comment specifically, I do appreciate the fact of how supportive you were to one another, especially in that moment where a member would have fumbled or lost their train of thought. You all showed that you were in this together. Because at the end of the day, we collectively have to live in this country. We collectively have to benefit from these services. And we collectively are afflicted by some of the things that take place in society. So I commend you on that moving forward. And lastly, actually, your voice is something that you need to exercise. Just as if we want a better body, we want abs, all these different things, we go to the gym and we exercise, your voice too has to be exercised. And how you do that in every single corner, every opportunity that you get, exercise your right of freedom of speech. Speak out against injustices wherever you may see it. Let persons know the potential of young people and what we have to offer to this world. So every time that you get that opportunity, exercise that voice. And I can assure that Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, and the world would be in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards. Do you all know that we are live on TV now? No? You thought it stopped? What's on the screen now? Yes, me, yes. Yes, we are live on TV now on the Parliament Channel 11. We are live on Parliament Radio 105.5 FM. And we are also live on our YouTube channel. What's the name of the YouTube channel? Very good, you all are paying attention. Yes, we are also live on ParlView, and we are updating our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the others that I can't remember with you all, right? And we have received lots of feedback, lots of comments from the public, and all of the comments, they have been positive. Yeah? Yes. Yes. So very good. I hope that you all keep it up and carry everything that you all have learned and experienced. I hope that you all would carry it with you all into later life. Right? Now we move on to the presentation of tokens and prizes. And this is the part of the proceedings where I get out of the camera angle and I go over here. Yes, yes, I'm not as photogenic as you guys, right? Good. All right. And we are going to begin the prize giving. You all are ready? Why are you all looking so nervous? Yes, you all are live. Don't be nervous just because we're still live. Come on. All right. I'd like to ask to begin the distribution of the prizes, I'd like to ask the President of the Senate, the Senator, the Honorable Christine Kangaloo, to be the first to start distributing. And we shall begin with the Leader of the House, Mr. Adish Ragbir of the Siparia West Secondary School. He was also the Minister of Planning and Development. Next, Cheyenne Friday. She was the Prime Minister. She's from the Debe High School and the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West. Akila Bernard of St. Francois Girls College. She was the Attorney General and the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West. Dylan Constantine of the Sixth Form Government School. Dylan was the Minister of Finance and the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Northeast. Thank you very much, Madam President. Next, I would like to again call on the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George. And we continue with Lakira Felix of the Faizabad Anglican Secondary School. Lakira was the Minister of Labour and Small Enterprise Development and Member of Parliament for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West. Anderson Budram of the Vishnu Boys Hindu College. Anderson was the Minister of Health and the Member of Parliament for St. Joseph. Renelle Cook of the Bishop High School in Tobago. Renelle was the Minister of Works and Transport and Member of Parliament for Laventille West. Brian Sukdeo of the Bishop Anstey High School and Trinity College East. Brian was the Minister of Public Administration and Member of Parliament for San Fernando East. Nicholas Rayburn of Queen's Royal College. Nicholas was the Minister of Tourism and Member for Tobago West. Yeah, man. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Next, I would like to call on the Deputy Speaker and Member of Parliament for Tunapuna, Mr. Esmond Ford. We continue with Grace Clark of the Bishop Anstey High School and Trinity College East. Grace was the Minister of Public Utilities and the Member of Parliament for Dabidi Omera. And Grace is all smiles. Next, Selina Mohammed of St. Francois Girls College. Selina was the Minister of Social Development and Family Services and a member for Lopino, Bonia West. Garrett Dinu of the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Garrett was the Minister of National Security and Member of Parliament for Point Fortin. Chrisette Benjamin. Chrisette is from the Rio Claro West Secondary School. She was the Member of Parliament for Tunapuna and Deputy Speaker. Just waiting a few seconds. Jeremy Bayer. Jeremy is from the Scarborough Secondary School. He's the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs and Member of Parliament for Tobago East. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Next, I would like to call on the Leader of Opposition Business in the Senate, Senator Wade Mark. And we continue with Clintia Simon of the Naparima Girls High School. Clintia was the Minister of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, and she was the member for St. Anne's East. Daniel Ayong of the Youth Training Center. He was the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and a member for La Brea. Adriel Charles of the San Fernando Government Secondary. Adriel was the Minister of Communications and a member for La Hoqueta, Talparo. Jusia Richards. Jusia was the member for she's from the Carapachima East Secondary School, Minister of Education, and member for Arima. Josiah Herod of the Youth Training Center. Josiah was the Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs and Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Central. Thank you very much, Senator Mark. Next, we would like to call on the Member of Parliament for Princestown, Mr. Barry Padarath. And we continue with Aura Whittier. Aura is from the St. Joseph's Convent in Port of Spain, Minister of Trade and Industry, and the Member of Parliament for Maruga Tableland. Next, Ajay Allen of the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Ajay was the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, and a Member of Parliament for Laventil East Mova. Next, Kyrie Rampasad of the Princestown West Secondary School, maybe one of your constituents. Yes. Kyrie is the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government and the member for Toko Sangre Grande. And she's reminding me that the correct pronunciation is Kyrie. Alyssa Bola of the Parvati Girls Hindu School. Alyssa was the Minister of Housing and Urban Development and the Minister for Port of Spain South. Thank you very much, Mr. Padara. Okay. Next, we'd like to call on the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Ms. Shamfa Kojo. And the Honorable Minister will begin distributing the tokens of appreciation for the opposition side. So we begin with Soraya Manchan of the Marabella North Secondary School. Soraya was the opposition chief whip and a member for Chaguanas West. Denisha Monroe of Point Fortin East Secondary School. She was the leader of the opposition and member for Siparia. Latifa James of Miracle Ministries. Latifa was the opposition member for Pointe-à-Pierre. Danielle Cornwall of Point Fortin East Secondary School. Danielle was the opposition member for Naparima. Crystal Patrick of the Providence Girls High School. Crystal was the opposition member for Caroni Central. Next, Mr. Elijah French of the Sixth Form Government Secondary School. He was the opposition member for Chaguanas East. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. And we call on Independent Senator Mr. David Small to continue the distribution of prizes. Amanda Lafon of the Faizabad Secondary School. Amanda was the opposition member for St. Augustine. Stephen John of Queen's Royal College. Stephen was the opposition member for Comuto Manzanilla. Tamara Smith of the San Fernando Government Secondary School. She was the opposition member for Caroni East. Thank you very much, Senator Small. Next, we call on the Member of Parliament for Mayaro, Mr. Rushton Pare. And we continue with Talia Taylor. Talia was from the Marabella North Secondary School, and she was the opposition member for Urupuch West. Ariana Joseph of the Scarborough Secondary School. Ariana was the opposition member for Urupuch East. Mark Dwaraka of Miracle Ministries. Mark was the opposition member for Couva South. TJ Ramcharan of the Princestown West Secondary School. TJ was the opposition member for Barataria San Juan. Thank you very much, Mr. Pare. Next, we call on the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, the Honorable Minister Clarence Rambarat. Karishma Balchan of the Siparia West Secondary School. She was the opposition member for Tabakeet. Jeremiah Ferguson of the Serval Life Center in El Socorro. Jeremiah was the opposition member for Princestown. Kirsten Ramuta of the Vishnu Boys Hindu College. Kirsten was the opposition member for Faizabad. Ruel McIntosh of the Naparima Girls High School. Ruel was the opposition member for Mayaro. Thank you very much, Minister Rambarat. Next, we call on newly appointed opposition Senator Anita Haynes. We continue with Priya Ramratan of the Parvati Girls Hindu School. Priya was the opposition member for Couva North. And Senator Haynes will also be presenting the token of appreciation to our Honorable Speaker. Ms. Cindy Nicole Andrews of the Bishop High School in Tobago. See, Cindy is much more pleasant than she is in the speaker's chair. See? Yes. And we also call on our clerk of the house for the day, John Elliott Budusing of Astra Boys College in Charlieville. Thank you very much, Senator Haynes. Now we call on another newly appointed senator, Opposition Senator Saddam Hussein. We continue with Navita Ramcharan of the Karapichaima East Secondary School. Navita was our Assistant Clerk of the House. Brandon Lala of the Astra Boys College in Charlieville. Brandon was the Marshal of the Parliament. Catherine Thomas of the Providence Girls High School. Catherine was the Assistant Marshal of the Parliament. And last but certainly not least, because we cannot perform our functions here in the chamber without these persons, our parliamentary attendant, Mr. Ruel Peters of the Karapichaima East Secondary School. Thank you very much. Now I could come back on camera. Yes. Okay. You all feel good now? Everybody got a nice? So-so? Well, hopefully we'll be able to cheer you all up some more. All right? We now move into the part of the afternoon's proceedings where we are going to let you all know who was the... I know everybody was waiting on that one. We are going to let you all know who was the best debater. Yeah? Yes. Yeah? Yeah? Yes. You all ready to know who was the best debater? Yes. Yeah? Okay. Just making sure. Just making sure. All right. So we'll have the Speaker of the House coming to let us know who was the best debater. The Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George.
Thank you. Okay, I'm very sorry, I don't know as yet. So, may I introduce the Vice President of the Senate, Senator Nigel Lefley.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Let me just say congratulations to everyone who debated here today. It was really excellent and a job well done. So just take this opportunity now to really congratulate yourselves. This is my third year judging the National Youth Parliament, and I can tell you that this particular year was very, very difficult because of the caliber of debate that you guys put on. We had 3 judges. The first one was Mr. Nikolai Edwards, an independent, temporary independent senator, who you would have heard remarks from a little earlier. Then we had Ms. Chantal LaRoche, who is the legal officer 2, right here at the Parliament, and myself. The criteria that we would have used would have been judging you, giving 10 points for each category, and there would have been 5 categories for a total of 50 points. The categories were presentation, diction, delivery, accuracy, and relevance. And so from that, we would have been able to choose the top debater. So I will actually give that information now to the speaker to deliver that.
Okay, so let me see that I could read this properly. All right, so as the Vice President said, the skill you all showed really was exceptional. And therefore, we have had a number of categories added. And I guess that in itself supports your skill that you manifested here today. So we have a special mention, certain people who will receive prizes, or just mention their names. But in any event, I'll ask you all to come up so everybody can see you all. And of course, when this airs again on the national television, I'm sure in about an hour's time, if you reach them quickly enough, you'll catch yourself live or captured live. Okay, so for special mention, may I invite Mr. Josiah Herod, and I think he was the Minister of Sport and Youth. Josiah, congratulations. So you will stay here with me. Please, thank you. And I think this is, okay, so let me go with the names before I think, because I don't have your portfolios here, but I remember Madam Speaker reminding us that we address people by their portfolios or constituencies. What I have here are names. But Mr. Ajay Aline, and I think he's the Minister of Agriculture. I want to test my memory, but I ain't doing too badly, but thank you. Congratulations, Ajay. And you will come on this side. And again, I'm pushing my memory. For thirdly for mention is, and I think this is the Minister of Public Utilities, Ms. Grace Clark. Congratulations, Grace.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, I want to express heartfelt gratitude and congratulations to the three of you all. Okay. So now we go to, like they like to say in competitions, to where the air is rare. All right, so that the third place winner is Miss Ariana Joseph. Congratulations, Ariana. And this is the member for Oropuch East. Second place goes to Miss Renelle Cook. Renelle, you works on transport? Yeah. Yes. Congratulations. Also from Tobago?
Yeah.
And the first place winner is Mr. Dylan Congratulations, Stella. Okay, so thank you again very much, and I wish you all a safe journey home.
Thank you once again, Madam Speaker, and congratulations once again to all of you. Yeah? We move along to the vote of thanks now, and the vote of thanks is going to be given by the President of the Senate, Senator the Honorable Christine Kangaloo.
So good afternoon, everyone. I understand that you all are hungry. So that I'm not going to keep you long, I have the simplest thing to do right now, which is to thank everyone who contributed to making this occasion as excellent as it was. So, to Ms. Catherine Gordon and Mrs. Helen Drayton, who I think took all the students through their different steps in terms of dress, etiquette, and civility, and learning how to debate. To the staff of the Parliament, the corporate communications, the procedural clerks, and who all assisted you as you went through your different training days. We also need to express gratitude to Mr. Nikolai Edwards, from whom you heard earlier, who also was helping with the training and preparing you for this moment. We want to thank the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Trinidad and Tobago Fire Services, and the Office of the Marshal of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, who all contributed to this event. Finally, we need to thank the parents, the principals, and the teachers who held you up as you went through all of your preparations. I'm sure that you would be the first to acknowledge that you could not have done what you did today without their support. So we offer our thanks to them. And finally, to you, our students, who had the courage to participate in our 15th National Youth Parliament. It is not an easy thing. You're on television. It's a very public affair. And you had the commitment to get up here and to express your views. And you did so with eloquence, and you did so with dignity. And we want to thank you for what you did and how you presented yourselves here today. You have heard it said that those who have been looking on have been giving in their comments to the Parliament. They've been saying how impressed they are with you and with your presentations. So we want to commend you. Senator Small, in looking on at you, said something that resonated with me. He says, this is an impressive group of young people. So as we close off, once again, we thank you. We want to thank you as young people for the consciousness that you have shown today. And we ask you as you leave here that you remember this experience, you remember the preparation that you put into it, and we ask you to take that consciousness as you move back into your lives as students and as you move on to your different career paths. You all are excellent citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and you did us proud today. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. It is now my duty to make two brief announcements before we depart. The first announcement is that all students from Tobago, could you please meet with Alicia at the back to organize your stuff? And the second announcement is that you all are invited to join together in the